Confident, confident, confident. I can be confident, 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 confident. I can be confident at work.
Hello and welcome to the Confident at Work podcast. I'm your host and your confidence coach, Anna Manning, and today we're going to be talking about recovering, the skill that makes confidence sustainable. So when I'm talking about recovering, I mean recovering from mistakes, from failures, from setbacks. And you may have heard me talk about this now. I have identified 7 skills you need to develop if you're going to be confident for the long term in your career. And one of these key skills is the skill of recovery, of recovering, because we know that life's going to do its thing. However hard you try to control everything and however good you are, life will still happen. Mistakes will happen, failures will happen, setbacks will happen, stuff will go wrong, especially when you are someone who puts yourself out there, tries, pushes a boundary, takes a new job, sticks your hand up for the hard thing, works with demanding clients. If you find that right now, when something goes wrong or there's a mistake, an error, a failure, whatever, if you find that it hits you really hard and it takes you months or even weeks to recover from that kind of setback, then this episode is for you. So I'm going to take you through it, framed as skill development rather than something you can either do or you can't. We're going to talk about why it matters so much. And I'm going to share the kind of spirals that I see my clients getting into, and actually that I used to get into too, when I hadn't and when they haven't developed this skill of recovery yet. I'm going to share some of my own examples and I'm going to take you through what I think recovery actually requires. If you are going to be able to maintain confidence throughout the course of your career, and I don't mean that you maintain it perfectly all the time, but if you are going to maintain being in a high confidence cycle overall, you require the skill of recovery, because confidence isn't about never failing. It's about trusting that you can recover even when you do. It's not about never making a mistake or there never being anything that goes a bit wrong. It's about trusting that you can recover when those things do go wrong. And it's not a personality trait, whether you can recover well or not. It's not luck. It's learnable. It is a learnable, trainable skill. And I know because I've done it and I've watched clients do it. And the reason why that skill of recovery matters so much is because when you don't, or you haven't developed the skill of recovery, when life inevitably, hits the fan, it totals you. You crumble under the weight of what's gone wrong or what you wish had been different. You might spiral into critiquing yourself, into doubting yourself, into overthinking and ruminating. And from that spiral, your confidence totally gets eroded. You lose time during your workday because you are spending that time spiraling in your head. So you become way less efficient, becomes harder to move on and to do something else. And you lose loads of energy to feeling crap. But then something else can happen, which you may not even notice at the time. And to be honest, I didn't necessarily notice this at first either. But when you haven't developed that skill of recovery, you can, after a mistake, after a failure, after a setback, sort of lose your capacity for taking a risk, or trying something new, or maybe putting yourself out there, whether that's saying the thing that you want to say that might be a bit challenging, or having a difficult conversation, or whether that's standing up on a stage, or whether it's presenting to your peers, or whether it's trying to develop a new client relationship. Whatever it is, you can lose your capacity for putting yourself out there and trying something new, which can mean that you shrink, you stop trusting yourself as much, and you can start to feel frustrated and not like the job that you used to like as much. So I want to take you through the spirals that I used to experience and I see my clients experience before they've developed this skill of recovery. So let's say you've made a mistake or there's an error. Even if it's a small one, I will see my clients spiral into really harsh criticism. So I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do that? What does that mean about me? What's everyone going to think? My reputation's going to be in tatters. And then that criticism kind of turns into doubt. Should I be here? Can I do this? What are they going to think of me? And then that doubt can move to avoidance. I'll try not to make that happen again, either by not doing the thing or by trying to control everything so well and trying to get everything so perfect that I completely exhaust myself. And in that process, I become less and less confident. And the less confident I become, the more I fear any other mistake or error that might go wrong. And around that spiral goes. And it's a similar thing with, I'm calling it the failure spiral, but it's if you fail at something. So let's say you pitch for something and you don't win it, or you go for a job interview, you don't get it. Very often what my clients describe falling into is I have a failure, and then somewhere in the back of my mind, even if I'm not consciously aware of it, I assume that because of that, I am a failure. So I go from I have a failure to I am one, and then I'm hit with shame about what that means about me because I'm a failure. And I have loads of harsh self-judgment about that, about how it's not acceptable and it's bad and it's wrong. And all of that kind of builds up inside. Usually we're not talking to anyone about this. And then I might withdraw from situations, or I might overcompensate by trying to never, ever have a failure again. And if I withdraw, there's probably going to be fewer opportunities for me. I might be less visible. I might try things less so that I avoid the failure, but there will be an erosion of your confidence in the background. And the more your confidence erodes, the more the fear of another potential failure ramps up. The more you doubt yourself, the more you shame yourself, the more you judge yourself, the more your confidence gets eroded and you worry about failure, and around the spiral goes. And this third one is, I call it a kind of setback spiral. So let's say you have a setback. Something doesn't go quite to plan, or something's not quite the way you wanted it or intended it. Can lead to frustration naturally, but sometimes that frustration can turn into sort of helplessness. So like, what's the point? Disengagement. And that disengagement creates a lack of momentum. It creates a kind of, what's the point? I'm not really showing up. Then I'm doubting and I'm questioning whether it's worth continuing. Then maybe I'm kind of quitting quietly, maybe, or pulling back, and around it goes. So 3 spirals there that have similar beginnings: a mistake or an error, a failure, or a setback. And when I was talking through those spirals, if you can identify your own, or you were thinking, yeah, some of that is relevant to me, I can see how I get into a spiral after an error, mistake, failure, etc., then just know that you can develop the skill of recovery, and it will interrupt that spiral. So I might have shared these stories before on the podcast, but I just wanted to share some little ones with you around my own examples of this, because I did not used to have this skill of recovery down at all. I struggled with it really hard. And this is one from the early days of my business. So I'd just gone full-time in the business. I'd left my old job, and I reached out to all of these people, to all these contacts that I had in a certain sector. And it was hard for me to do that, hard for me to put myself out there in my new professional capacity. I'm going to say none of them replied. Actually, one of them did reply. No, 2 of them replied. One replied and was like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. And the other one was like, yeah, maybe, let's have a chat. And all the others just never replied. And after I had sent those emails, I had to get under a blanket on the sofa. It felt hideous. I'd put myself out there, and in my head, it was like a failure because I hadn't really developed the skill of recovery at that point. Like, I had a bit, but I wasn't very good at it. And so what that meant was, you guessed it, I didn't do that thing again. I told myself, well, there's no point in me reaching out to people. It doesn't work. In brackets, it hurts too much. Close brackets. That was a bracket that I didn't say out loud, but I just told myself, well, this doesn't work. This is a waste of time. And I'm only just doing it again now. I've been avoiding it because I hadn't developed that skill of recovery. I've talked many times on the podcast about the time I made a mistake when I was a junior lawyer, and it was potentially a bad mistake. It took me over 3 months to recover from that. And yeah, it was painful and difficult. Wouldn't take me that long now because I have developed the skill of recovery, but then that is how long it took. I was actually chatting to somebody the other day as well, actually, a friend who had been for an internal job and she didn't get it. The thing that she was most worried about was that it would look embarrassing. And because it was an internal job, everyone was going to know that she'd gone for it and that she hadn't got it. And that was going to be embarrassing. So she was in this total spiral about how embarrassing it was and what would people think and would her reputation be ruined and all the rest of it. And we went through it a little bit. And I was like, well, I wouldn't think badly of anybody who had gone for a job and hadn't got it. I might feel, oh, I'm sorry that you didn't get it, but that's probably all I would think. I wouldn't assume it was because they were rubbish and they couldn't do the job and like all of these things that she was assuming. So the recovery after that, going for the internal job and not getting it, that was going to take a while for her. And this comes up as well in client examples all the time because it's all right to be confident when everything's going hunky dory, isn't it? But as soon as something goes off the rails, even slightly, that's the moment where you need this skill of recovery in order to get yourself back on track. When something goes wrong when I'm working with a client, I'm always really pleased. And it sounds awful that I'm really pleased. I have to stop myself from smiling because it looks so insensitive. But I know that we have a moment together while they're still being supported by me, while they're still working with me to build and develop this skill of recovery. And I know they're going to need it for the long term because this is not the only thing that's going to go wrong in their career. There's definitely going to be something else. And when they can get to a place of being able to recover and then trusting that they can recover, they're going to be more confident going into challenges. They're going to be able to take more calculated risks. They're going to be able to put themselves out there a bit more. They're going to be able to raise their hand for the thing that might be tricky or difficult because they know that even if there's something that doesn't go quite right, they will be okay. They have got themselves, they've got their back, and they will be able to recover. They're not looking at a spiral that's going to take months for them to get out of and in the process is going to totally trash their confidence. They're like, it's going to be okay. I know I'll be able to deal with it. And then I'm going to be able to move on. So, like most of the things that I teach, I have lived this. You can hear it in my examples. And I have worked out how to recover way better. I am still not a master in this skill. This is still a skill that I am developing. But as I've been developing it, I've been more willing to try things. I've been more willing to fail because I've trusted that I can and I will recover with my confidence largely intact. So I want to talk a bit about what recovery actually requires. And very often when I talk to people about this, they think that right now it's taking them ages to recover. They're going into a spiral. It's ruining their confidence. And then it takes them months to kind of climb out of this hole. And they think that the ideal position is that they just don't care. So now they care so much that it hurts so bad and they don't recover for ages. And they think that what they need to do is just not care because if they don't care, it'll be fine. But I don't think that's really realistic at all. There are some people who really don't give a shit. Yes. And I know that I'm never going to be one of them. Maybe you're never going to be one of them either. So that might not be realistic for you. And I don't think recovery means pretending that something doesn't hurt. I don't think it means I'm just going to slap a load of positive thinking on it and ignore or shove down that this sucks. And I don't think it means never feeling disappointed. I think things that go wrong, or if you have a failure, or there's something that you've been working on, it just does not work, you can be hurt. You can be disappointed. Being good at recovery doesn't mean that we get rid of all that for you and turn you into a robot that doesn't feel anything, but it does mean that even through the error, even through the failure, even through the mistake, you have your own back. You know how to process through it. You know how to recognize and interrupt that spiral if you see yourself going into it. And you know how to look after yourself, get up, and keep going. And I don't want you to hear, yep, this is just easy and this is what you need to do, because I have really learned this lesson the hard way. This has been hard won for me. Some people I think, are more sensitive to this stuff than others. And I felt like I was certainly one of them. So I don't want you to hear me saying you should be able to do this and it should be all nice and easy. No, but do hear me saying that you can develop the skill of recovery, even if you find it really fucking hard right now. And I thought about what did it mean for me developing this skill of getting better at recovery? And it was a few things actually I had to develop my tolerance for or my willingness for. And I'm going to take you through those. So, one of mine was I had to develop my tolerance for being ignored. And obviously, that is a very particular word that I'm using there. So, in my business now, I do sometimes reach out to people, pitch for stuff, etc. And sometimes you just get ignored. People just don't come back to you. And maybe that happens in your line of work too. So, I had to, in order to recover better, really develop my tolerance for being ignored. And part of that for me was being able to put it into its perspective. So when that used to happen, I used to take it very personally, like I have been ignored, I have been rejected. And obviously that hurt because that would hurt anybody who thought that. So there was a lot of emotional pain and then avoidance associated with it. But I can see now when I look back, I've developed that tolerance because I don't take it so personally anymore. I don't automatically assume that they're thinking bad thoughts about me or thinking that I'm annoying or that I'm not good. I don't really think now that they think anything about me if they don't reply to me. But in the past, I did. And this might ring true for you. Something happens, let's say you get ignored or someone says no to you or anything like that. You can assume that they're thinking all kinds of things about you, and that's the reason why. And when you just allow your brain to fill in the blanks, like I did, with, oh my God, they think I'm awful, they think I'm this, they think I'm that, then of course it's going to take you ages to recover. So, this is part of this skill of recovery is to notice where your brain is going to fill in the blanks with shit and then be able to actually really look at that and think, actually, is this really that personal? Or are they just busy? The second thing that it meant for me is that I had to be willing to give something a go and fail and still know that if I fail or if something doesn't work, that I in myself as a person am still okay. So when I have a failure or something goes wrong, I am not a failure. I am not wrong. I am not bad. I am okay. And I had to develop that sense of okayness. And some of that was around, I've talked about this on the podcast before, but when we get into the realms of shame, feeling ashamed of ourselves because we had a failure or because we got something wrong or because we had an error, we think that means that we're bad or we're wrong, we're just not good enough as people, we're not worthy. When we've got all those kinds of judgments going on, it creates shame. And when we feel shame, very difficult to recover. The next thing I had to do was develop the skill of actually taking care of myself. So, not just ignoring it if something was hard, but actually recognizing that something was hard, acknowledging that, and being able to care for myself and my emotions around that thing that was hard. In Britain, we have this sort of default mode where we force each other almost to look on the bright side. And sometimes this is a good thing. So let's say that friend that I talked to who didn't get her internal job. So she might say to somebody, I went for this job and I didn't get it. Well, another British person might say to her, and it's probably to try and make her feel better or to avoid the discomfort that they feel. They might just say, well, never mind, plenty more jobs out there. The next time you go for one, it'll be fine, etc. So they just kind of plastering platitudes all over her. Like I imagine you just sticking big Post-it notes on her that say, don't worry, stiff upper lip, ignore it, think positive. And when something's gone wrong or you've had a failure, I don't think necessarily that that's the moment for feeling positive or for giving people fake platitudes of positivity. Because think about how you feel when you have had something go wrong or go bad, and everyone's like, oh, well, you should just think positive. It doesn't soothe you, it doesn't help you, it doesn't support you. It's kind of annoying. And it sort of doesn't acknowledge where you're at or what you've been through. We develop that habit in ourselves of just trying to logic why this thing should be okay, or I should be fine about it, or I should just be able to get over it, or I should just think positive. And to be honest, I don't really think that is necessarily helpful a lot of the time. I think when we recognize that something was really hard and maybe that it hurt, or that we're really disappointed, and we spend a bit of time just allowing ourselves to be that. Maybe we learn how to listen to the disappointment or just sit with it a little bit, spend a bit of time with it. We find that in the end, we don't stay disappointed forever. And I think we stay hurt or down or disappointed for longer when we do this weird positive thing and try and paper over the cracks. So part of it for me was developing the skill of recognizing where I was at, not papering over it, and just taking care of it instead. The next thing was being respectful to myself no matter what. So we have a very strict rule in this house. I say this house, it's just me. But we have a very strict rule in this house that we do not say horrible things to Anna or about Anna. And this lesson has also been hard won over many years. But everybody's on board. I say everybody, all the voices inside my head are on board now with the fact that we do not shit talk about Anna. Right? We just don't do it. It's not how we roll. So I know, and I can trust this now, and it's taken a long while, years, to build this skill, that even if I have a failure or I do something totally wrong or whatever, I do not shit talk myself. I don't say, well, that happened because you're an idiot and just so shit, and why did you even think you could do this and blah, blah, blah. None of that. Because all of that adds to the load that you have to recover from. As if it isn't bad enough that something's gone wrong or that you've had a failure, you're now also getting shit piled on top of it, which makes it so much harder and so much more painful. So I give myself a break. I'm like, okay, this is shit. It sucks. Didn't work out. I've got to acknowledge that I'm disappointed or I'm hurt or whatever. And I'm not going to shit talk myself. I'm not going to get into my shame shell and make it all like, oh my God, it's me. I am in some way deficient or unworthy or unlovable, or I'm just not good enough as a person, and that's why this thing's gone wrong. I'm not going to take it so personally. And developing all of that has developed my skill of recovery to quite a monumental degree compared to where it used to be. Oh my, is it different? And I'm not saying that I do this perfectly all the time. I don't even think you have to do it perfectly. I just think even if you could take a couple of steps towards getting a bit better at recovery, you can cut your recovery time quite substantially. I'll often have a session with a client where they'll say, oh, something went wrong last week. And I'll say, all right. And they'll tell me about it. And I'll say, oh, like, take me back 6 months in time. How long would it have taken you to get over that? And they'd be like, oh, well, 3 months. I'll say, well, and how long does it take you now? And they were like, well, about 3 days. Now they're annoyed that it still took them 3 days. And I'm like, have you seen how long you've just cut your recovery time by? Loads. From 3 months to 3 days. And it is not uncommon for me to ask clients that question because I want them to notice that when they cut that recovery time by developing the skill of recovery, it has a big impact on how they can show up at work all the days where they have recovered more successfully. And it can be gradual, and it's good that it's gradual. So I want you to think about what it would change for you if you developed the skill of recovery. If you knew that even if, or should I say when, something goes wrong or you have a mistake, a failure or a setback, that you know that you could pick yourself up and you could keep going. You know that it wasn't going to send you into a total spiral that left you with low confidence. You know that after a bit of attention and a bit of acknowledgement and maybe even a bit of processing of the pain or the disappointment or whatever, that you could keep going. Recently, coach, I have a coach. She introduced me to this concept of the 5-second funeral. I should quote her. It is Stacey Bayman. And she said that she wanted us to be able to have a 5-second funeral for the thing that went wrong and then just get up and go again. And I was like, oh my God, 5 seconds. So I'm working on having only a 5-second funeral now. And the other day, something went wrong and I allowed myself, I thought, you know what, even if I gave myself a 5-minute funeral, that might be enough. And so I did it. And by the end of 5 minutes, I was over it and I could carry on. Now, that would have taken me weeks before, maybe even months. So I don't know if you're ready for the 5-second funeral. It might be more of an advanced concept if you're just starting at the beginning. Maybe you could give yourself a 5-day funeral. You might know what's right for you. But when you've truly developed this skill of recovery, I know that your confidence is going to stay more stable over time. And I also know that from listening to this episode, you will likely know what you need to work on first in order to build the skill of recovery. Whether it is spotting the spiral, whether it's committing to treat yourself with respect no matter what happens, whether it is promising yourself that you're going to have your own back, whether it is having a 5-minute funeral or a 5-day funeral, or whether it is allowing yourself to just feel so disappointed and seeing if that makes any difference. I think you will know. And if you can just start to work on that piece first, you will start to make steps towards building that skill of recovery. Because confidence is not built by avoiding failure, mistakes, and setbacks. That is just never going to happen. It's built by knowing that you can recover from them. And recovery is a skill that you can learn. If you want my help to build this skill and the other skills that you need to feel more confident at work, head to the link in the show notes. Book a call, spend some time with me, and we will go through your challenges, through those areas where your confidence might currently be shaky. And I'll tell you what work I think we could do in order to help you feel more confident at work. Whether that is private coaching or if you're a female professional, joining the Confident at Work membership, all the details are in there. I will see you in next week's episode. Bye.
Confidence, confidence, confident. I can be confident. Confidence, confidence, confident. I can be confident at work.